TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
Good afternoon. This is TNCRadio.LIVE, and this is the Truckers Network Radio Show with your host, Shelley Johnson.
You're listening to the Truckers Network Radio Show. I'm Shelley Johnson with my co-host Tom Kirk. We're all about the news, talk, information, entertainment, and drivers want to hear. You know, a lot of truckers are real advocates for the industry and very involved with nonprofits. Jess Graham is one of these drivers. She uses her Freightliner FLD to raise awareness for trucking charities and issues facing the trucking industry. Her truck is called the Black Widow. Jess is very involved with Real Women in Trucking, Truckers Emergency Assistance Responders, and Truckers Christmas Group. Welcome, Jess. Thank you so much for being on the show. You're one busy lady. Where do we start? I was wondering if you
go ahead.
Could tell us what got you into trucking.
I just needed a way to get out of a bad relationship and situation. And I was in taxis and sedans, and made the jump over to the big trucks so that I could not only provide a home and still work, but take care of my daughter, you know. So she and I got my CDL, I got my truck, and I went back and collected her and hoisted her on the top bunk with all of her crap, and we hit the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was this something that you ever thought that you'd be doing, aspired to do, or?
I honestly wasn't one that thought, I've always dreamed of driving a truck. You know, I've got friends that are like, I've just always been in love with the open road. And I think I just kind of fell into it. When I first determined that I needed to make a change and find a new driving job, everything said they needed a Class A CDL. So from the time that I started looking to the time that I was at a school sponsored by a trucking company, it was 4 days. So, I mean, I just jumped into it. I would recommend doing a little bit more research, because I saw a lot of people that made that same jump and weren't as lucky as I was to land on my feet.
Wow. I would say it was brave. Were you a little scared, you think? A little hesitant? And
I was terrified from, not knowing what to expect when going into orientation to the first time we even climbed into the trucks on the yard. You would have had a better time asking me to land the spaceship on the moon than to try and put a truck in gear and put it in reverse and back it into a spot, because there was just so much going on and such a flurry of activity at all stages that if you didn't just keep moving forward, it could really overwhelm you quickly.
Oh, absolutely. How did you do that with a little one? How old was your daughter at the time?
She was 10. Okay. And I left her. I had gotten her older sister up to high school graduation, and I left her there with her sister and her dad, and said, I'll be back for you. And got on the bus a couple days later. And, I think from the time I started to the time I went back home to collect her was 9 weeks. Somewhere in there. But I was able to get her and homeschool her as we rolled down the road.
Wow. How do you do that? Homeschool and drive? There are parents today that are going nuts just doing a Zoom meeting at home and trying to help with their little ones. That's you're a talented lady.
It was, we had our schedule. When I was awake, she was awake. So that meant if I had to get up and start my day at 4 a.m., then she had 30 minutes from the time I got up to be in that passenger seat. Now, she could be wrapped in her blanket, still half asleep, but she had to be in that chair. Mm-hmm. And we had a time limit of how long you have your wake up period, how long you have, and that came from trial and error, because believe me, I've had those mornings where she's wide awake when I'm trying to sleep. because we're on a weird schedule and, you know, her laptop falls and hits me in the face.
Oh,
that's not fun.
No.
But, you know, we finally found the schedule that worked for us, and I didn't do online school with her. I actually had the hard copy books because I didn't want to be committed to not having reliable Wi-Fi. This was, you know, 10 years ago,
Right.
9 years ago, something like that. But, you know, not having reliable Wi-Fi and not being able to, be at a certain Zoom meeting or whatever, a certain meeting at a certain time or log in at certain times. So I did the hard copies and I sent them away to a company that kept records. You know, she did the work and, you know, so she had her little tray table and I'm giving her a spelling test as I'm driving down the road and she's using the dry erase marker on the windshield so I can see, you know, or if she's doing her math and has a problem, she's writing the problem on the windshield if she's needing me to help walk her through it, you know, whatever she was studying in social studies, we'd find a way to incorporate it into our journeys, and things like that. You know, we found what worked for us and being able to, you know, it's not always about the book knowledge that you get. It's about the time you're spending and the experiences together that really made for a really good, learning experience for her.
Well, I would say that you're very innovative. Your semi is called the Black Widow. Why is it called that?
Well, so when I was talking to my business partner about buying a truck, he's like, you know, we've got an old truck. We just got it. And you are finally going to be able to paint it, design it, do whatever you want to it. And we had bought this truck and I hadn't even seen it yet, but I trusted his experience on it. And I said, so I get to have a mermaid truck finally? And he goes, whatever you want, sky's the limit. Everything you put into it is you. And he sent me the pictures and I was like, oh, that's not a mermaid truck. And he's like, well, what is it? I was like, that's a Black Widow. She's tough. She's a man eater.
I love it.
And that's where the Black Widow came from. And it was just like that quick.
That's great. So you own your truck. And what have you done to it? Have you really dressed it out and everything else?
Well, having a pretty truck is not as important as having one that can roll down the road safely and not break down. So we've spent the last year and a half going all the way down front to back. And we had an overhead done on the motor. We're not 100% sure of the mileage, but it's got somewhere in the 2.5 million mile range. And so we know it has had at least one rebuild, and we had our mechanic look at it and kind of poke around and, you know, do the oil tests and things like that. So he's confident that we still have a couple more years before we have to really start looking at a full rebuild on it, again. But as far as we know, she's in, you know, but other than that, we've done a lot of the other mechanics, the alternator, the, air dryer, the air compressor. We did the driveline, clutch fan, just all of the different mechanical components. We pulled apart the dash and redid a lot of the lines, the air lines inside, because like my windows are air controlled. So if I don't have air pressure, I can't roll my windows down. And just all of those little things, little plastic parts inside that break over time. And so we've pretty much finished up mechanically with what we need to do. And we're going to start this summer sketching out what we want to do on the inside. And we're going to lay the hardwood floors and redo the dash panels and things like that. And then probably early, maybe even late spring, early summer next year, she's going to go in for a new paint job because she is a 26, almost 27-year-old truck with her original paint and hood. So she's in really good condition, but she's starting to chip and fleck some paints in some areas and getting a little faded in others.
Well, a lot of miles, that'll do that. But what a labor of love. I mean, you get kind of fond of a semi after that many years too. What character, you know?
I've enjoyed every minute of like discovering her personality, and every minute I get to drive her. I really do love that, you know, being able to bring this old workhorse back out to life, and you know, don't normally run this far, but I'm in Phoenix right now. Normally I stay to the Southeast and the Midwest, but I just, every now and again, I want to stretch her legs and go visit friends.
Sure. That's really cool. We're talking with Jess Graham. She's a professional driver, and she drives a Freightliner FLD. She calls the Black Widow, and she does a ton of stuff for the trucking industry with a lot of nonprofits. We've got more to chat about coming up right here on the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.LIVE. Stay tuned for more. Eating right and eating healthy are two of the toughest challenges truckers face. Sometimes the only way to eat right is to bring food along for the ride. As a professional truck driver, you know that space is limited in your truck cab. Living on the road with limited storage space means you have to get creative on how you store your personal belongings. Drivers will spend weeks away from home, so their semi-truck becomes their home away from home. Truck drivers are pros at making the road feel like home, and stocking up on food is one of the ways they make it feel more like home. With a number of unhealthy food options on the road, drivers need to pack healthier foods and snacks. Food storage is essential to keep your truck clean and organized. It also helps you easily see what foods you have with you on the road. Keep listening to learn some storage ideas for long-haul truck drivers. An electric cooler. An electric cooler is a great way to store perishable items in your truck. They're lightweight and large enough to store and cool down several drinks and snacks. They're also a great alternative to mini fridges. Canned foods. Canned foods are great for truckers because they require little or no preparation. They're also extremely cheap. You may want to consider buying a food warmer if you prefer a hot meal. When storing cans in your truck, we suggest putting them into a container and placing them under the lower bunk. This limits the cans rolling around in your truck while you're driving. Storage containers. Storage containers will be a trucker's best friend when you're on the road. Drawers and storage containers are great for storing clothes, toiletries, and food. 3-drawer storage containers make it easy to organize and store your favorite foods or drinks. Baskets. Baskets allow you to find the food you need quickly and easily. We recommend using clear baskets so you can easily see what's in the baskets. You'll need to secure the baskets so they don't move around while you're driving. Buy some bungee cords to keep your baskets secure in the bunk or cabinets. If you want more information on proper storage and food storage ideas, check out the Truckers Network blog, 5 helpful organization tips for truck drivers. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show. I'm Shelley Johnson with my co-host Tom Kirk. We're talking with Jess Graham, who's a professional driver. She drives a Freightliner. She calls the Black Widow, and she's really involved with Real Women in Trucking, Truckers Emergency Assistance Responders, and Truckers Christmas Group. So when do you find time, Jess, to be involved with all of these groups while you're driving? I would imagine you're long haul, am I correct?
Yeah, the thing I like about the trucker charities that I'm involved in and organizations is we are all active drivers. We're taking a few hours here and a few hours there to try and influence our community from the seats, you know, our driver's seats, from, you know, a dock at a shipper. Like today I've been working all morning on Queen of the Road stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the behind the scenes of planning events like that, from setting up the nominations, sorting through all of it, compiling all the information and data. Sure. And it's a lot. So it just a little bit here, a little bit there, and everybody pitching in. And that's what I think makes these organizations unique, is they're driver led.
Absolutely. So you're a real advocate. What got you involved? Obviously, you have a real strong belief system, and you like to work for people. Was it Real Women in Trucking you got involved with first, or?
I did. I was looking for a community when I first got started. You know, we all kind of are looking for where we fit in and where we belong. And I tried other groups, and I just didn't fit in. That wasn't the group I was supposed to be in. And I actually, in one of those groups, met Idella Hansen. Mm-hmm. And she kind of took me under her wing and has decided that I'm going to now do all these things that she likes to do. And that's how I got involved with Real Women in Trucking and Truckers Emergency Assistance Responders and Trucker Christmas groups. Because when Idella voluntold you, you go do it. But I got led to Real Women in Trucking because I didn't feel like I had a voice, and I saw that they were actually trying to speak for drivers. Mm-hmm. And, you know, growing up, my grandfather's a minister. You know, we were taught to use your voice for positive and power, and to give a voice to someone that doesn't necessarily have one, and always speak up for what's right. And I think that seeing the women in the Real Women in Trucking organization doing just that, that's how I realized that was my community. That was my group. That's where I belonged.
So what do you see as some of the most important issues, especially for women truckers?
I mean, there's a huge problem in the predatory nature of the training fleets. Mm-hmm. And like I pointed on earlier, is I got thrown into the mix without very much research or information. And it got overwhelming. It could have gotten overwhelming, but it does for a lot of women, because if you're not quick on your feet, if you're not prepared, you can get swept up and caught off guard. And that's how you have a lot of the issues that women encounter out here with the assaults and the harassment. Is they're just looking for someone to guide them in their steps, and they're instead getting someone that's going to take advantage of the fact that they don't know or don't have anyone they can turn to. Right. So it's really important that there are groups out here like Real Women in Trucking, mentoring groups like She Trucking Sisterhood. Yeah. That has changed the mentorship programming for the way women drivers are mentored out here, is because there is a group where they can reach out and find the information they need to help keep their feet level.
Well, you know, and mentors are so very important in any profession. You need to have somebody who knows the ropes and who can maybe teach you some of the shortcuts and give you guidance on this is what to do and what not to do, because it's not something you necessarily are taught when you're being instructed by probably in a class.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the women that I now call my dear friends that are part of this organization, when we first all got started, we were shoved out here, sink or swim, you know, just go and figure it out. And that's just the way that we were brought into this industry. But now there really is a need in order to change the numbers and the percentage and how the retention would really be of women in the industry. We have to change the way we mentor them. We need to be a little bit more hands-on and have access to information, because there are such a variety of choices. It's easy to get caught in the wrong one. You know, these mega carriers spend millions of dollars a year in recruiting, right, and churning out drivers that are not adequately prepared for their job, when so many smaller mom and pops companies would be willing to teach them. They're just buried on, you know, page 47 of the of the Google.
They're just basically being lost. And that's, you want to have well-trained drivers. I mean, that's an objective that, everybody wants to have, the driver themselves, as well as, people, the motorists, they all, and they tend to blame truck drivers, and they shouldn't. I mean, it takes a lot of skill, and it requires a mentorship, and it requires good training. And I like what you're doing with that, because it makes total sense. In terms of mentorship, women didn't have it until when? Is it just within the past decade, or?
I think the rise of, there's been lots of groups that have attempted it, but it kind of gets washed out because you have organizations that are not actually looking to represent drivers. They're all about the company. So, the true, I think, access to really good mentorship has only been around for maybe the last 5 or 10 years. Where women are starting to really say, hey, we've got to band together or else we're not going to make it. I think Indeed.com just posted a little over a week ago that most truck drivers only make it 1 year in this industry, which is a staggering statistic. And I think we had noticed that only 1 in 6 women that attempt trucking makes it out of their first year and into driving as a career. So, we realized that as an organization that we really have to stick together and offer as much good information to new drivers as we can. And, She Trucking Sisterhood has stepped up to take on the information. And while Real Women in Trucking really focuses on lobbying the legislators to change the status quo that has led us to this point.
Right. Well, and that's a job in itself, trying to get through to the politicians and everything and make change on that side. And it makes total sense what you're doing in terms of advocacy and sheet trucking, with mentorship and all of that. Driver retention is a major problem in driver shortages, not only for women, but for men. And it just makes sense to have a champion all the way around, somebody who's going to advocate for you and someone who's going to help you along the way as you're learning. Because I would imagine it takes a while to drive a semi confidently and say, hey, this is old hat. And even so, you probably still have a moment where you don't always have your comfort zone,
There are always going to be heart-stopping moments. And if you don't have those, even as a established professional driver, it's almost time to hang up your keys at that point, because now you're scary out there. You have to be on edge all the time.
Right.
Expect the unexpected. Anticipate the unpredictable.
Yeah. And, oh gosh, I'm sure you see plenty of unpredictability with the four-wheelers who cut in and cut out and do just stupid things.
That's why I'm unsure of autonomous vehicles, is because I don't see how you can train a computer to predict what is unpredictable.
Right.
That to me is, I don't feel that I'm the most intelligent person, but I'm fairly confident in my learnedness to believe that it's nearly impossible to predict the unpredictable.
Humans are very unpredictable. You can kind of anticipate based on, you instinctually, I think, know when somebody's going to do something stupid. You can kind of see what they're doing, but it's still, people could catch you by surprise. And yes, an autonomous vehicle can't necessarily anticipate that, even if it's in the program and they're supposed to learn as they go along, the computer brain. I personally, I don't like anything that takes a job away from someone, and I would find it very scary to see a semi without anybody behind the wheel. That just, I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. I'm scared of, other drivers in semis. And so if you have one without a driver, I'm going to be double scared of it.
Yeah. It should be more like a sci-fi movie rather than something that's actually being contemplated.
I think just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many. I think my ex worked for Starsky Robotics before they went out of business, and he was one of the first drivers they hired. Mm-hmm. And so I remember him and I talking, about it, and it's like, the problems that they were trying to fix weren't even problems. They were trying to figure out how to remotely open the swing doors on a trailer. And I said, the companies that are going to be buying these trucks and implementing them are not concerned with swinging the doors on that trailer from a remote location, because that's a waste of the autonomous truck. Most of these companies are drop and hook anyways. They're going to pull it into a yard, drop it, disconnect, and let a yard dog do it. Right. So you're spending 6 months and $1 million on trying to figure out how to remotely open these doors. You're making problems that aren't even there.
So there were programmers that didn't understand the industry.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's exactly what I told him. And, he and I just chuckled about it, and we didn't say anything because he was getting paid to, test their programs out. And he's like, it's not working. And, but if you study, you've got these tech people that aren't in this industry, that haven't been raised in this industry, and they're trying to fix an industry they know nothing about.
That makes no sense, does
it? It does. I know how to stay in my lane, and I know transportation. So that's where I'm going to focus my energy on. Right. I'm not trying to do robotic engineering or run a restaurant. No, this is where I know what I'm doing.
And it would make sense that they would have somebody that would know the industry, that's actually driven a semi, who would be programming it. But I guess that's, once again, like Tom Kirk and I have talked about, it's common sense, and that's not common. But that's definitely scary. And speaks to the fact that we really do need to have people behind the wheel that know what the heck they're doing, and that can anticipate the unexpected from human beings that are also on the freeways with them, and the unpredictability and, let's say, stupidity, because there is a lot of that you guys see out there too. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.LIVE. We're talking to Jess Graham, a professional driver. Stay tuned for more coming up.
This info blog on TNCRadio.LIVE is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. ISS score for truck drivers explained and how to find it. An inspection selection system score is called ISS score, was created by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, to help law enforcement officers determine if the truck should be inspected. The inspection selection system score is frequently used to determine if your truck will receive a bypass command or not. There is often confusion between the ISS score and the CSA score. While there's a correlation between the two, they're not the same thing. The CSA score identifies high-risk motor carriers. The score is based on the performance data of the driver. The ISS score uses a combination of different CSA categories known as Behavior Analysis and Safety Improvement Category. That's basics for short, to determine the carrier's overall inspection rating from 0 to 100. Similar to the CSA score, the lower, the better. What determines your ISS inspection value? Unsafe driving, hours of service, HOS, driver fitness, controlled substances and alcohol, vehicle maintenance and cargo, hazardous material. There are 3 different ISS ratings categories: inspect, optional, or pass. Inspect, 75 to 100. Optional, 50 to 74. Pass, 1 to 49. ISS scores can determine how often you'll get inspected. Although some roadside inspections are at random times, most will be as a result of a higher ISS score. How to find ISS score. The FMCSA has an online portal where carriers can log in to check their ISS scores. You'll log in using your DOT-issued PIN. From there, you'll see the company information section on the main screen. Next, click the blue button labeled Inspection Selection System Info. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
11 hours in on a 9-hour day, my brain, it was reacting in the usual way. I was starting to believe I really couldn't get there from here. Well, that's when I saw it. I started to grin. Somebody must have heard about the shape I was in, 'cause I swear heaven came down and gave me a sign. It said, truck stop just ahead, 1 mile on the right. We got DEF, pay at the pump, and breakfast is served anytime. We got 4X shirts in red, white, and blue. We got a CB shop on channel 22. We got lots and lots and lots of parking spots. So I rolled in like a moth to a flame, to my home, away from home till I get home again. Only a fool could live the way I do. But what can I say, man? The struggle is real, and every driver knows it's a part of the deal. Life ain't fair, but it's funny if you look around. At the truck stop, what you got is making do on display. If your coffee is hot, but your waitress is not, well, who cares at the end of the day? We got lizards and preachers, dealers and bums, and party roll be rocking till the mopo comes. So you never, ever leave your door unlocked. Oh, no, you don't. There's no family feud in my favorite chair. There's no supper on my stove. It's just a blackout curtain and a back that's hurting, a 90% chance of snow. Oh, no, 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 no. A man gonna do what a man gotta do. If push come to shove, I bet you do it too. But take it from me, sometimes you'll have to dig down deep. The road got a mean streak, and if you let it, she'll run all over you, and man, you're gonna regret it. But I found a way to get by, is follow the signs. To the truck stop, anywhere, anytime, day or night. It may not be the lap of luxury, but in a minute I'll be feeling alright. They got 11 kinds of deep fried food. I get a nice hot shower, elevate my mood. But I don't ever touch them pickled eggs. You know I don't. There's no family feud in my favorite chair. There's no supper on my stove. It's just a blackout curtain and a back that's hurting, and a load that still gotta go. Oh, no, 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 no.
Enjoy the best in trucker style music and comedy. Weeknights starting at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.LIVE. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Jess Graham, who's a professional driver. She drives a Freightliner she calls Black Widow, and she's had quite the adventures, and I really admire the courage, Jess, that it took for you to just learn. You needed a career change, and you needed to get your daughter out of a situation, and you went on the road with her, and you learned you're really good at this. You were talking about, though, sometimes it can be tough to make a life on the road. What do you suggest for people? Because it probably is an adjustment.
Absolutely. You know, being trapped in this box day after day, is a definite change in, what a lot of people are used to. And there's definitely an increase in the amount of people that are out here that suffer from maybe depression, anxiety, from social isolation. Sorry. But you have to really not get so wrapped up in running that next mile that you forget to stop and do stuff that humanizes you. Stop at a place where you can get out and stretch your legs and go to dinner, just start examining where you can park outside of the major truck stops and experience life. I had lunch today with a dear friend, Deb. We both happened to be in the same area and ended up meeting up to grab lunch, and 45 minutes, but it was one of the highlights of my week because I was able to laugh and, swap information. We checked out each other's trucks and, just had a few minutes where we were not just so focused on the job and the miles.
Right. You have a chance to be yourself again.
Exactly. Any chance you get to stop and high five and, give your friends a hug and, visit places. Another friend of mine, we decided a long time ago that we were going to start a vacation fund, and 5% of our check went into a vacation account so that anytime we met up or anytime we decided we need to get out of the truck, we would meet up and we would have the money available so that we didn't get bogged down, so we got, we take a 4 days in San Francisco or in San Antonio, or, swing through New Orleans and, spend the night walking down Bourbon Street. We just learned how to live and not just go to all these states, but actually experience them.
Sure. We were talking about truck parking and how drivers are being forced basically to have to park in some precarious spots because obviously rest areas are closed in certain states and everything else. How do women contend with that, having to park maybe in an unsafe area because there's no other choice? How do you stay safe?
Oh, goodness. You asked me that right as I'm sitting in a warehouse district in Phoenix, with people walking up and down, passing really close to my truck. You just have to be aware and take the precautions you need to protect yourself. But ultimately you need to make sure that you keep in touch with people so they know where you're at. Our group, Real Women in Trucking, we have Life 360, so we can watch, where each other is at and just basically keep an eye on each other, see if they're moving, see if they're, you can send a distress call, different things like that. There's a new, F3 defense system that I actually is sitting at my yard right now waiting for me to get back there to install. And that's actually,
I interviewed the gentleman who came up with that.
Aren't you excited about it? I'm excited about it.
Very cool.
It sprays the, from inside the cab, you squeeze the trigger and it sprays the pepper spray outside of your truck. So you can get out of there and into a safer position.
Major deterrent too.
It's definitely going to be a game changer for women to have that ability to feel safe in whatever situation or wherever they're at, and not have to, because there have been so many company policies that won't let drivers carry any kind of weapon or any kind of self-defense mechanisms. And so they kind of expect you to be out here, on your own, for years I had a boot knife and I wasn't allowed out of my truck without it. My uncle, he was a trucker, and my aunt as well. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you keep it in your boot. You keep it in, on your person at all time. Sure. And it's, you have your tire thumper that scared a guy off from breaking in my trailer on the side road in East LA where I was sitting. I ended up
people's attention, no doubt. And
oh yeah,
you got to do what you got to do, because especially when you're sleeping, you don't sleep well if you don't feel safe.
That's one of the biggest things that I think people don't realize is with the lack of adequate parking, we're not getting the full rest that we actually are required by law to get, because we are on edge. There are people walking by. There's cars racing up and down the streets, or, who knows, any number of hazardous situations. If you're on a exit ramp on the highway, it's the constant flow of traffic racing by you. So you're only getting a quarter of the rest that you really need. And then you're going to be expected to get up and drive again the next day, a full drive shift. And you're expected to do it safely, because everything we have, all the regulations are all about safety.
But yet it doesn't help the driver at all. That's the problem. The laws are put down on paper, but it isn't practiced, and it isn't part of the real world. It's like, okay, we want to accomplish this. Let's help the driver so that they can get the proper sleep, so that they are safe, and provide for them. And people have to put their trucks somewhere. It makes no sense to me, but
I like the fact that I'm truly independent now, because I don't have rules like other companies have, because there's a lot of companies that are like, they won't allow their trucks to park in alternative parking situations. So that hinders the driver in the amount of production that they can do, because you now have to spend half your day looking for parking, because you're not allowed to park here or park there or do this with your truck. And my truck being older, I have a little bit more flexibility in creative logging, so that if I need to go a little bit farther down the road to find a safer spot, I can do so without the repercussions and backlash of my company and everybody else, threatening my job.
Sure.
That there's that fear of company drivers that every little thing that they do against these arbitrary rules that are set up that actually don't benefit or, increase safety or do anything to help the driver. It's just all these little ticks of reasons why we're going to just be done with you and move on to the next one. That lingering, looming fear that if I do any little thing, I'm going to lose my job. Now, I'm not saying drive cavalier, but I think we need to have a little bit more grace when it comes to the way we treat drivers that are our drivers in our fleets, as a carrier. Absolutely. Some days I want to strangle, the driver that I have, but other days she's amazing, and I'm glad that I am fortunate enough to give her an opportunity to teach her how to be an owner operator without the commitment, where she's gotten where she's able to self-dispatch herself, so I don't have to dispatch her, and it's given her, and it's opened up her autonomy and her freedom in how she runs and where she goes and what she does. And it kind of pushes her limits. Right. But, I take the good with the bad, and, you get a flat tire, I'm not going to harangue you over it. It happens,
Life happens, absolutely. And drivers can be punished, and they're excellent drivers. And they're being punished over stupid regulations and stupid stipulations and situations where they're not being accommodated, where they can get the rest that they need and they can't park their truck. It's a round robin that what I would think would just frustrate the heck out of you. I know it would me.
Oh, absolutely. I think the driver shortage that is talked about is really just a treatment of drivers. You know, there's not a driver shortage because there's over 500,000 CDLs generated every year. And we know that most drivers don't make it out of their first year. So we're wasting CDLs. So it's not a driver shortage. It is a carrier shortage. There's a shortage of carriers that actually genuinely care about drivers.
Right.
So let's change the narrative and stop saying there's a shortage of drivers, because there are over 500,000 people a year that are trying to drive. Mm-hmm. It's a shortage of carriers that want to be good carriers.
Amen to that. I would say that that's insight that people need to start listening to, because drivers are important and good drivers are precious, and we need to respect the trucker. That's what we say here at TNCRadio.LIVE. Jess, I really have appreciated chatting with you today. Did you want to give a plug for any of the nonprofits you're with, or?
Absolutely. Right now, I've been spending my morning doing some of the behind the scenes work with Real Women in Trucking, our Queen of the Road Award. This is our 5th annual Queen of the Road Awards, which is the first dignified award given to women drivers. And so we're in our 5th award cycle, and nominations are open until Mother's Day, May 9th. So realwomenintrucking.com, under the events tab, you'll see Queen of the Road. Nominate your favorite driver, a driver that's impacted you, influenced you, helped you in any way. A great lady driver, because I love hearing about these other women who have struggled in different ways or in the same ways. And, you know, I love to share their stories and hear their stories. And, you know, Real Women in Trucking from the beginning has been all about empowering women drivers. Desiree, from day one, made it her
TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
Hi, this is Tom Kelly, managing partner of IMSICO LLC, doing business as TNCRadio.LIVE. The website TNCRadio.LIVE and any content or podcast related to the website are copyrights of IMSICO LLC, copyright 2021. All rights reserved. Any redistribution or reproduction of all or any part of the contents in any form is prohibited, other than the following. We welcome you to download and play the publicly available podcast and share with others for personal use. Please acknowledge TNCRadio.LIVE as the source of the material. You may not, except with our express written permission, distribute or commercially exploit the content. And while we endeavor to keep the information up to date and correct, we make no representations or warranties of any kind expressed or implied about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, suitability, or availability with respect to the website, the podcast, or the information, products, services, or related graphics contained on the website or podcast for any purpose. Any reliance you place on such information is therefore strictly at your own risk. For additional information, including details regarding monetization of this podcast, send email to podcasts@tncradio.live.